Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining to the podcast Inwards Rides with Savni. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you very much.
What are you grateful for today?
Awakening, most of all. I'm grateful for the rain because I love rain. And there's thunder and lightning because right now it's like the rainy season here in the Caribbean. And unlike most people, I like rain a lot.
What do you like to read?
I like to read, would you believe, horrors? I
Wow.
love horrors. And Stephen King is probably one of my best. I think I read almost all of his books. So ever since I can remember, that has always put my attention, which is kind of odd, but I love reading horrors. And if I were to say other books, it's like books on spirituality, but not spirituality in the sense of, ultra religious or something. I mean, I do believe in God and stuff, but I also believe that God is more encompassing than we might ever imagine.
That's beautiful, and we will touch that in our podcast. I have questions based on that.
Okay.
So, Cindy, I have been listening to your story, and I was obsessed with it, honestly. And why I was obsessed with it, and what struck me is how much resilience shines through you in everything you have shared so far. So, before we get into some of the really intense moments and your learning points and everything about that, can you tell us a little bit about what was Cindy like before all of this? Like, who was Cindy before the wheelchair came to her life or before the diagnosis?
I guess I could say, a happy go lucky person. And also, in a sense, in that I was a very tested person because I faced a lot growing up. Like, I grew up in an East Indian traditional family. And I guess, as you know, there are certain rules. And this was like about 50 years ago when I was growing up. And in my country, everything was like you had to follow certain rules and you couldn't do certain things. And if you belong to the culture and the traditions, then, you're supposed to follow all these things. And mine is a small country, so like it was more closeted and more close minded. And I thought outside the box most of my life in that don't tell me to do something yet you're doing something different because I will question you. And I've done that all my life in that if you're telling me to be honest, then why are you lying to somebody? And I will ask. And I got into a lot of trouble. I mean, asking questions that I wasn't supposed to ask. And I would do things because I felt like it. Like, girls are not supposed to climb trees in dresses, but I did, and things like that. And I wasn't rebellious or mischievous. It's just that I kind of had things that I followed my own instincts and that got me. And to a certain extent, is like I was isolated and I kept to myself and my thoughts were my own. But at that time, Cindy was someone who preferred to see the world through her own eyes. And the person I am now is someone who has grown a lot through everything I've been through. And that has happened in stages. It didn't just come like all of a sudden. It happened in stages because what I realize now is that everything I've been through has been leading up to the position I am now, so that it was kind of preparing me for what I had to face now.
And what you have faced, I know some part of the story, and you can tell us more. When you shared, somewhere I heard about you had lupus, and that got me interested. What does that mean? So I was trying to understand in simple terms, and then I understood. Please correct me if I'm wrong. That like basically body's immune system, which
Mhm.
normally protects us from the infection, instead of protecting us from the infection, it starts attacking the healthy tissues. That's what I came to know.
Yeah, because
By
lupus it's an autoimmune disease, and what it does is that it attacks your body inside. So it's like you're fighting your body is fighting itself because it sees your normal healthy functions as being invasive. And in a sense, in that I never knew I had lupus, even though the doctor said that I had symptoms from a very long time that was showing up. Sometimes when you get ill, you kind of think, okay, you go to the doctor and they treat just that symptom. And so over the years, like things came up and you would get treated for it and things like that. But then over time, I developed an allergy to all medications in that I couldn't take medications for stuff. And
so before getting diagnosed with lupus, did you had any symptoms about it? That
yeah, like I didn't realize actually, like, growing up, I always had anemia. And I didn't realize that having anemia was a symptom of lupus. And then, like, they tried to treat me with, like, giving me, like, protein supplements and iron supplements, but then they realized that I had something where my body didn't have the intrinsic factor, which it broke down to extract the iron. So it's like I couldn't take the medication because I was vomiting up anyway. And what was supposed to help me couldn't help me because my body was fighting what was trying to help me, and they didn't see that. And then aside from the anemia, I developed severe migraines. And then I had the issue of I would walk sometimes and then I would fall down. And I got allergies to a lot of things. I'm probably only East Indian who's allergic to curry, and I grew up in an East Indian family, and curry was like everybody cooked curry. And I was the only one who could eat curry. And then over time, I began developing allergies to not only medication, but foods and scents, smells, perfume smells, and things like that. And then I never had asthma in my entire life growing up. And then suddenly I got adult asthma. And like then my blood was giving trouble and I would start walking and my body function started, I would start falling down and I'd walk and then suddenly I just fall. And like you lose the ability to walk. And I didn't realize all of these things was my body was attacking myself. So finally, I it was like a series of things, and going to the doctor, they can't find out what happened. They send you to do this, to do that, to do this test, to do that. And then finally, my doctor sent me to a rheumatologist, and it took him over a year, even though some of the tests for lupus came back positive. They said, something you get a false positive. And I got fed up and I said, listen, no, I'm kind of like someone who will say, okay, listen, enough is enough. Either I have it or I don't have it, do something. So the doctor said, okay, Cindy, fine, fine, fine. And he referred me to another because they said I had osteoarthritis and stuff like that. And yes, the test was positive but for about a year. I was doing all these tests, blood tests was coming back totally off the scale, irregular, because you're supposed to have a blood count for females of around 11. Mine was coming back 2.3, which means I had severe anemia. Yet I was teaching, I was doing everything, and they couldn't understand how I was functioning because technically I wasn't supposed to have much allergy, but I was functioning with it. And then my white blood count cells were like crazy up and down, which means that I had a lot of infections in my body, and they couldn't understand how I was functioning when I had all these things, going on wrong with me. Then I went to another specialist and he looked at the results and said, okay, Cindy, you have lupus. And I said, okay, fine.
But so it looks like when you are explaining everything, it feels like you had one thing, and because of that, you had several issues going on. But
Mhm.
then, how did doctor told you that it's more neurological, and because of that, you're not able to walk? I was not able to relate that together.
Okay, in that when one thing I did understand to a deeper extent about lupus is that we think lupus is just your body attacking yourself. You might get infections and stuff like that. But then over time, like when I spoke to some experts, they were explaining to me that lupus can affect different parts of your body. It can affect your organs, it can affect your brain, it can affect your bodily functions in that you can't walk sometimes, or you might have heart condition, or you could develop like I have chronic kidney disease also, right? So, which is a result of the lupus. So, your lupus affects a lot of your body, and you don't associate it with lupus because you think it's some other disease. And then, like I got a final diagnosis of all the things that was wrong with my body. It wasn't just the lupus and the fact that I had an autoimmune disease. It was the fact that I had serositis, which affected my heart. I had chronic kidney disease, which affects my kidneys. I have Raynaud's phenomenon and Jacob's atrophy. And then I had something with my fingers and toes turning blue, which had to do with vasculitis and tendonitis. And all that was lupus related because it was like one thing led to another, because my immune system was being attacked.
My God. So this is, I mean, kudos to you how you must have gone through all these things. It's like back to back to back. It looks like something was happening. And I heard that this condition was with you for 11 years or more.
Actually, in 2010, I was diagnosed with it, and the doctor said I probably had it since I was very young. It's just that the conditions were showing up in pieces. And it reached the point where, because it wasn't seen about or noticed or identified as lupus when I was much younger, it's like when you get an infection and a cut or something and you don't take care of it, it begins to spread and worsen and worsen. The same thing with lupus, because it kept attacking my body and it wasn't being monitored or like looked after. It spread and it intensified, and that's why I had all these symptoms coming up. So it's like when you don't treat something, it gets worse and worse and worse, and that's what the lupus was doing. And that I was only treating like isolated symptoms, like if I had a rash or if I had like a pain or something came up, the migraines and stuff like that, the doctors would give me something for it. And then over time, everything stopped working because I got allergic to a medication. And that, I mean, I had violent reactions to medication. I had skin rashes. My throat would turn blue, and things like that and stuff. And Then in 2010, that's when I was diagnosed officially with lupus, and they said, "Well, okay, yes, you're allergic to some medication, but there was a new drug out called Plaquenil, which was the newest drug that came out to cure." And they told me, "Okay, but let's try it in a controlled environment like the ICU or something, and we'll see if that can help maintain your conditions," because I was getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And the first time they tried it, I flatlined because I was allergic to it. I mean, flatline as in they had to resuscitate me after 5 minutes.
So flatline, as in literally
Yeah,
flatline.
yeah, that flatline as in that. And they said, okay, you're allergic to this. And at that same time, because I couldn't be treated, my body was getting worse and worse. And I was confined to a wheelchair for over 11 years.
Oh my God. So I'm still stuck at that flat line. Did you had any sensations? I mean, and how did you came back from the flat line? What was it like?
All I know is that the doctor gave me the tablet, which Blackwell to take. And like I don't like being closed in because they had me in the ICU. And then they said, well, so I told my husband, I said, let's just go outside. I just want to get some air because whatever. And at the same time, while we were sitting outside, they had just given me the tablet to take. And at the same time, the doctor came up and he said, what you doing outside? I said, I just needed some air. And he said, Cindy, I think we need to go back inside now. Because I didn't realize that he was seeing something was happening. And by the time we went back into the room, I flatlined. I don't know anything. All they said is I just dropped on the bed and that was it. And the machine just went, the normal thing you see with a flatlining. And that was after just 5 minutes of taking the tablet. And I was out for 18 and a half hours and they didn't know if I was going to be, if I would come, how I would be when when I woke up.
18 and a half
Hours.
hours. Wow. And you had no memory of if you had any hallucinations or any.
Actually, like this was something that happened, and afterwards, like I asked the doctors and I asked my husband about it, and they told me, Cindy, don't talk about this too much again. And at that time I didn't really speak much, but what happened is that when I did flatline, it was like I was in the room in a corner and I was seeing the doctors and them what they were doing and all the doctors that came in and stuff like that. So when I came back, I asked my husband, I said, there was a certain doctor who I remembered, who was doing stuff and thing. And I described the doctors. I described that he had a tear in his shirt pocket and he had a pen holder with pens and stuff. And one of the pens had leaked on his white shirt and had a blue stain. And I remembered his name. No, I never saw the doctor in my life. And I never saw the doctor. All I could know was that I remembered his name. I remember what he did. And I said, well, how you know that? If somebody spoke to you about it, I said, no, because I saw it. I was right up there and I was looking and I saw it. And like, I remember the doctors told me how, they were asking about it because they found it very strange because that doctor had work shift and he was the one on call and then he was on leave. So by the time I woke up, I could not have seen him because he was off during that time. He had gone on his break after working. So there's no way I could have seen him and nobody could have spoken to me about it. And they said, okay, just don't tell anybody that because most people don't know about, this outer body experience and stuff like that and thing or whatever. But up to now, I still remember exactly the doctor's name, what he looked like, what he did. And I remember all the doctors and what people said. And they said, how you know whatever? So I said, well, no, that's what you said.
Yeah, and these days people are researching a lot about out of body experience. Thank you for sharing that. Our audience will love that to hear someone sharing about it. So thank you for being open about that. So when you came, like when the flat line disappeared after 18 and a half hours, what was it like for you? What did you felt?
Okay, what happened then was like a series. I went into a 4 year fog after that because like briefly I would recover a little bit and I'd be like kind of normal and then my body would come up with something else and I would go out of it and I'll get really really bad because after that incident with the black quenelle I tried going back out to work but I kept falling down and stuff like that and then I started getting migraines and other issues and then I had to stop working because it was like really really bad, so I had to retire from teaching, which I taught for over 25 years. I had to retire from teaching and then my fingers and I have vague memories of the 4 years that I was like really really my body was really really ill because like every time I'd flatline I'd be back for like a brief period and then it's like the illness will just overtake everything and like all I know about being the illnesses my body went through is from my medical reports and what my family told me and like friends and things, people who witnessed and doctors who would tell me about what I went through, but it's like My body was present, but I wasn't present for most of that time.
So when was that moment when you decided that, oh, enough is enough?
Actually, it happened the last time I flatlined about 4 or 5 times. And the last time I flatlined was in 2013. And that was really, really, really bad. That was probably the worst set of illnesses that I had, in that I had blood toxemia in my entire body. That's when you get blood poisoning. And my whole body was turning black with the blood poisoning. And they couldn't identify the source of it because they couldn't test me because I was allergic. Because if they were to test me, they had to use drugs, and the drugs would kill me. So it was like a catch 22 in that they can't treat me because of that. And I remember my husband told me, said the doctor said if I went outside in half an hour, I would be dead because they had given me a 5% chance of living. That's how bad it was because they couldn't treat me. And like for 3 weeks, I was in the ICU, and they had like tubes and stuff like that, because and then the doctors couldn't find veins to put tubes in because I didn't have the veins had collapsed. And they said I just got up, I woke up, I pulled out all the tubes, and I told them, okay, I'm ready to go home now.
What?
I don't know what happened. All I know is I woke up and I said, enough, I'm ready, I want to go home now.
So it was like instant courage. You got that. Okay,
I think
that's
it was more, it wasn't so much me getting instant courage. It was more like, I guess, divine God decided that, okay, Cindy, it's time for you to start back again. And that's when I came back. And I was in a wheelchair after that for about 8 years again. But I could do stuff. I could move about in the wheelchair. And since 2013, I have not been to a single doctor. I have not gotten sick. I have not had anything, even with COVID, I have not had anything happen to me, even though I am immune deficient and immunocompromised. I have not been to a single doctor since 2013.
So, were there any further small steps that you took that you don't have to see the doctor now? Of course, like divinely.
Actually, they can't treat me in that I can't get treatment from even they I still have the lupus in my body. I still have chronic kidney disease. They can't test the extent of it because to test how bad the chronic kidney disease, because when the first time they did it, it was at stage 2. So they don't know how far it has progressed. Because to test it, they'll have to inject drugs into me, and the drugs could kill me. So no, I don't take medication. I don't follow a set diet or plan or anything like that. All I know is that I just see it's in God's hands and I live by His grace, and that's it.
So, that's a surrender to the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's amazing. And like, because I believe, like, because you surrender to the divine, I think that also gives you a power in you that, okay, whatever happens, you are just okay with it because you have surrendered and you know nothing wrong will happen to you. That's, I think, the mental, like, your attitude plays a long role in this.
Yeah, because like you see, very often when things come, I don't just mean illnesses or whatever. When things happen in our lives, we always get pulled back into seeing the bad things. But I chose when I came back and I was recovering. Of course, I was rebellious in that I had lost my independence. I couldn't drive. I couldn't do the job. I love teaching. And I also like being able to just get up and go. If I want to do something, just get up and go and do it, and move about. And I was always active because I would be walking up and down all the time and doing things and whatever. And I couldn't do it because I was confined to a wheelchair. So it's kind of like, I had to battle myself in that I said, okay, I was going to walk, even no matter what. But then I guess in trying to be how I was before, I didn't realize that I was causing undue stress to my family, my children, and my husband, who had already gone through so much stress. Because I'd try to walk and then I'd fall and I'd, kind of sprain my ankle or something, and I couldn't get treatment. And like they would scold me and they would get upset because like, and then my children said, Mom, you don't know what it's like when you flatline, and it's bad for us, and if something were to happen to you, doctors can't treat you because it's not if you break your leg they can go and fix it back for you because you're allergic to anesthetic in the first place. So and then it kind of hit me that I was being unfair to them and I was being selfish because I wanted to get better, because I was focusing so much on what I didn't have or what I had lost in my illness. And I just stopped and I said, that was not right. And because I had read my medical report, but in a sense, it's like something happens to you, but when you're not present, it doesn't sink in with you. I read my medical report. I saw all how bad the blood was and the fact that I had to get like 13 types of blood, pints of blood every day because I had zero platelets, I had zero blood count, I had no white blood cells. I mean, that was how it was, right? And I didn't realize because yeah, you could hear things but it doesn't sink in because I wasn't like present to actually feel or to actually know what was going on. And then I said, no, I can't do this to everybody. And then I said, okay, what are the advantages of me being in the position I am now, that I'm in a wheelchair, that I have all these illnesses in my body? What are the advantages of, what can I learn from being here? And surprisingly, when I started thinking about what do I have, even though I am in this position, what do I actually have? I have a home. I have children who love me. I have a husband who loves me. I have safety. I have security. I have support. And I also have the ability to still be able to do things because I can still think. And even if I'm in a wheelchair, I can still do things. I can still sweep and mop and cook. And I love to cook and bake. And I learned to bake. And I said, okay, fine. I like to sew. And I taught myself to like make simple dresses and to do things. I love to read and I read a lot. I love to look at things and paint. And I started focusing on what I could actually do. And also, I learned to really listen to people and to be patient because when we are talking to somebody and we're moving, something, your mind is half here and you're thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to see. Somebody tells you something, but your mind clicks on one little thing, and you are kind of like anticipating what you're going and planning in your head what you're going to tell them in advance. But I kind of learned to stop and actually listen because I couldn't move and go anywhere. It's like I sit there and then I begin to pay more attention to like body language, the unspoken things people say, tones and voices. I learn to be more patient. So you see, there are advantages in this situation you are, no matter how bad it is. Not just an illness, because even if you suffer like a loss of someone you love, which I did when my husband died in December 2021.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he died on Christmas Eve, December 21, after 33 and a half years of marriage. And that, going through what I did before, kind of helped me to learn how to face things and how to look at things differently and how to manage. I wouldn't say heal because we don't heal, but how to manage with all the emotions and all the situations that may come up in life.
I'm so sorry about your loss. Do you currently have any fears and how do you come out of those right now? Because honestly, like looking at your life journey, you have gone through so much and come out like, you have stood like a pillar for your family, for yourself. So I think you are the best person to answer this. Like, do you have any fears right now, and how do you process them, and what's your process of coming out of that? Because it's going to happen, right? Life is ups and downs.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that is a no because we all know that life is not smooth sailing and winds of change will blow. We get other people influencing our lives. You can't help it because even if you live alone, you do get influences from outside and even from yourself. And sometimes the biggest critic you will find, or the biggest battle you will face is the one inside of you. And you ask about my fears right now. My fears right now, I have some dreams that I want, or some things that I think are in me that I would like to see come to fruition. Because, like I told you, I do write. I'm a poet. I'm a writer and stuff like that and thing. And my fear is that I will not be able to help as many people as I want, or I don't want to influence people per se. I just want to help people see things from a different point of view, from a different perspective. And sometimes I'm afraid that my fear is that the way things move in life and how easily people are influenced and tend to follow trends, that they kind of block themselves and they don't keep themselves open to really seeing life through a new perspective. And my fear is that a lot of people, not really for myself, but that people have forgotten that they're a human being and they're not a human doing.
Can you elaborate more on that? That's a really important message.
You see, you're a human being in that you were created. You didn't make this world. When we think about it, we come into a ready-made world where everything is already around us. Regardless of our life circumstances, regardless of the families we are born into, regardless of the circumstances we face, you were given alive. And the fact that you were born means that you were already deemed worthy. You were validated by the fact that you were born. You don't need anybody else to validate. Well, that's my thought anyway, because like everybody was saying, like, how do you think you were to do whatever? And I said, well, listen, from the moment I took my first breath, I was given validation because someone higher up thought that I am worthy, I am loved, and he chose to put me here. So I got validation from the most important being in the universe. So I don't need anybody to validate me. It may sound selfish, it may sound conceited, it may sound egotistical, but as a fact, the fact that you are here means that you have value. And we have to see that in ourselves. And anyway, like I was explaining, you are a human being. You were born to be somebody, to be something. You were not born to do everything. you were not born to chase or to, yes, you have achievements. Yes, we all have goals. Yes, we all have desires. But at the same time, you have to value yourself and not place outer things as the mainstay in your life. Because, okay, you can have billions and billions of dollars, right? But you will still keep chasing more. Why do you keep chasing more and more and more and more? It's because you're not you don't know how to value yourself, so you can't value anything else you have around you. I mean, that may sound like if I'm talking from some woo kind of spiritual kind of thing or whatever, but the fact is that you only learn to value when you value yourself and you find contentment in yourself, then you can be happy with no matter what you. I grew up, and when I got married, like my husband and I started from -0, to be honest with you, because it was just us alone, and we started working and building and doing everything together. So I learned the value of hard work. Yes, I also learned to value every little thing we have, and over time, it's like you realize that you can be happy with little if you know the value and what you put out to get it, and what you know in yourself that I did this with God's help. I reached the place I am right now in life, where I have my home and I have my children who are grown up and who are both married and who are doing well, and I'm giving another chance by God to move into the next stage of my life and to find a probably to step into the next purpose that He has for my life. And I value that because I'm a human being and I am here to be something.
Yeah, and that's such an important message. Value yourself, your time, your resources, so that, like, this is even my experience that I was a people pleaser before, and when I started valuing myself, my time, and not looking for external validation, it happened naturally that I'm so much into like creativity and in the flow, and I'm not worried about what people will say, what's happening around, and then I can give back more because of that, because I'm okay with who I am. Yeah, that's a beautiful message. Now, coming back to the trends you talked about, what trend you think these days is does not make any sense for you?
The search to be influencers and to have social followings. Listen, I am not on Facebook. I had to join Facebook when I did my first poetry book. And if I can tell, that was in 2023. And if I put up three things on Facebook, since that was it. I am not on Facebook, and I'm not bashing Facebook, because that has been a help to a lot of people. It's a good place to be for a lot of people and things, but it has to be learned to use properly. Like everything else in life, we have to learn to use social media in a proper, conscientious, and mindful way. And like everybody seems, the push seems to be, I have to tell everybody my business or put this image out to everybody in the world that this is how I am, and I deserve to have people liking me and following me. And if you might start off with good intentions and you might really want to do something, but then it's like the more you get is the more you want to get more followers, you want to get this. And then the way people change their minds is like 1 minute something is good, and the next minute it's like, oh, no, no, no. Once somebody says one thing against something, we all people tend to like, oh yes, that is true, and you follow that without bothering to really think for yourself. And it's like this mindful. And I've always wondered, who are the D who set the rules that everybody seems to think that, well, that's what they say. So I said, who is the D who say that? Why must I follow the D? No, I'm not being like on my own because that's like just to be anti everything. It's just that sometimes when you sit and you think about, or when things cross your mind and you wonder, why am I trying to impress people? Why do I keep searching and searching and searching and trying to join this group or be known for this or be seen in public? Or yes, it's good to have connections because it broadens your thinking, it broadens your experiences in life. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of the influences. Do these match with my values? Do these match with who I am? Am I comfortable being there? Or are these things changing too much in me that I sometimes push down my feelings because of the fact that I know to myself that this is not who I am. This is not how I think. This does not resonate with me in my inside being. And I am not comfortable going along this path, but I push that aside because everybody else is doing it.
Makes sense. So, has creativity, like you said, you write, you have also done poetry. Has that helped you in your years when you were on a wheelchair or after that? How has that played a role in your life?
Actually, I've always written poetry in my mind, but I never really, a few times I put it on paper, but growing up, because I wanted to be a writer to a certain extent, because I wanted to be an archaeologist and travel all over the world and write, be a writer and stuff like that. But growing up, like when you're in a small country and you're in a set environment and your family and stuff like that, they said, that doesn't pay, you can't do this or whatever. No, that girls don't go traveling all over the world by themselves and stuff like that, So I kind of pushed that aside. And then I got into teaching right after high school. And found that I love teaching. So I stayed with teaching. And then I got married and had two children, and life got busy with schedules, and my husband changed jobs, and he was working shifts and stuff like that. And I would write sometimes, but then like that was just like a few things, so you never had the time. And then when I got, like, my body got ill, it was in my head, but I don't know, it just stayed there. And then I remember after my husband died, and I would think a lot about a lot of stuff and think, but like, I was learning how to manage. I had to learn how to manage by myself because we were married for so long and we did everything together. And a friend of mine, someone who's very close to me, he said, I want you to think about something and I want you to write me the answer. And what came out was a poem. And that surprised me because I didn't really write. Like, I wrote in my mind, but to put it on paper was a surprise to me. And then that kind of opened the floodgates. And I just started writing. And it's like I couldn't stop. And like I wrote over 300 poems in a year. And I have the books. And the thing is, I write by hand. So everything just came out. And like I don't, sometimes my mind will move so fast with a poem that I can't keep up with it. And I have no idea what I write until I'm finished writing.
Wow. So, all your books that you have published, all the poems are handwritten, printed in the book?
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm going to check that today.
Yeah, because in like the first book of poetry I published was Pieces of Me Touch My Soul, and there were poems in there. And the thing is, as I write, I don't edit what I write. I never edit what I write. What I write is exactly, it remains like that because that's how it came out, and I don't change anything in it. And like even when I write my books, it's like, they say writers, it's best to have a plan and have everything in place and have an outline for chapters. I have never written like that. Like my book, Grief is a Price You Pay for Love, which I kind of wrote in a month because I thought I was dealing with a loss in a way that I thought I was managing. And then it hit me really, really, really hard. And the only way I know how to express myself to myself is to write. So I wrote, and that book is written, how it is printed is exactly how I wrote it. There might have been editing for the grammar and stuff like that or whatever. But in terms of the writing, it is exactly how I wrote it. I don't change my writing. Exactly how it comes out of me is how it is written. And I've written like three other books, and I don't, well, those are unpublished, that I don't adjust the writings in them or whatever.
Oh, that's beautiful, and that is so authentic, real authentic. What people talk these days. This is real authentic. You bringing out your creativity to the audience. That's awesome. Now, I want to touch a bit upon, like you said at the start of the podcast, that you don't believe in a religion or something like that, but you definitely believe in the divine. Can you elaborate on that? Because there is such a thin line between the
Yeah,
two.
okay. Like I grew up, like I told you, East Indian, Hindu, really, really strict. Like this is the Caribbean, small community. We had certain things, whatever. And I believe, because I grew up vegetarian, and I was really deep into religion. But then at the same time, Trinidad and Tobago is a multicultural, multi-ethnic society in that we have a mix of religions and people. And like I had relatives who were Muslims also, and I have relatives who are Christians also. And I went to Presbyterian school, primary school, well, elementary school, and high school. And I had friends who like were every different factor of Christianity, and also Sai Baba and Buddhist and Baha'i. So, we got the whole mix of every religion all around me. So, like, I incorporated all of that into it, even though I was a Hindu. And I would question things because to me, it's like this was a broader thing because everybody held on to what they grew up in, or what their belief of God is, or how they saw him. And there's nothing wrong with that. And to me, religion, I mean, I'm not criticizing anybody, okay? Just that there is, if you believe there is one God, then why can't he be big enough to speak to different people in different ways? If you believe God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, then why can't everybody else believe that God has the power at certain times when he sees the need to go to people in the way that they can understand him and the way that they need to understand him. Okay, this is me, so anybody can criticize. It really doesn't matter to me because I know that there is a supreme being who knows where I'm coming from. And I wouldn't get these thoughts if he didn't give it to me anyway. And like I said, I grew up religious, but then I realize the hypocrisy, and I will say hypocrisy in it because not only religion, hypocrisy of the people, because religion is not hypocritical in itself, because what the texts and the beliefs and the words and the books and stuff that are involved and the teachings of religions are not hypocritical. It's the people who make it like that, and we are all imperfectly human, so we have to accept that is all part of it, right? So I kind of got backlash from the fact that I would question things because, okay, I'll give you an example. I grew up in a temple. I told you I was really religious, but I was also kind of out of the box religious. And when you grow up in a temple on Sunday, when you have the prayers and stuff like that, and the pundit would come and he'd speak, and afterwards, they'd have the sermon part of after you do the prayers and the singing, you have the sermon part of it. And normally it's a male dominated thing. So I remember one Sunday, I was 16 years old, and the guy who was in charge of the temple, the manager of the temple, he came and he said, he couldn't speak on the whatever, and he gave me a book and he said, Cindy, read this and you'll talk to everybody about it. And I was shocked because I'm a girl, I'm 16 years old. People see me as kind of funny, even though I do sing in the temple, I participate in everything and stuff like that. And I said, okay. So when I got up to speak, after everything was finished, and he took the mic and he said, okay, Cindy, would everybody was like, what? And then everybody got quiet. And I thought myself, I said, listen, okay, God, you know what you're doing because I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I got up and I started to read it and I explained what I understood from it. And people were shocked. And of course, you get the good responses. And then afterwards, when it settled down, of course, it had all the old people say, how come you let the girl do it and why she had to talk about it and she doesn't know enough. And even my own family criticized me. So then I asked Papi, well, that's what I called him, the guy, whatever. I said, Papi, I said, why did you ask me to do it? And he said, because I knew that you would see it differently and you would see it how it was meant to be seen. And you would talk from inside of you. You wouldn't talk from what you think people expect to hear, or you won't talk to get people to do things a certain way. You will speak from inside of you because you are not influenced by everything else around you. And
Wow.
would you believe that up until I was 20, more Sundays when people couldn't speak, he would ask me to speak. And that caused a lot of criticism. But then when I decided to get married to my husband, who was Pentecostal, and of course that caused a lot of backlash because one, he wasn't Hindu, he wasn't following the right traditions, he wasn't good enough, he didn't match up. And that came from my parents too because I got ostracized and disowned by my family for marrying somebody out of the religion. So I kind of lost faith in the people. And then I didn't believe in having two religions in one house because my husband was Pentecostal. I grew up Hindu. And I said, you know what? I will keep to my belief in God. And I would believe he's there and he's broader and he's bigger than any religion. And that's what I said. I'm more spiritual in that I believe God is in all around us and he's in us because he made us of love, from love, with love, and in love. So I would prefer to be that way and see God as in everybody, regardless of the religion or background or anything like that. So that's why I say I'm more spiritual than religious.
Yeah, that's you put it through in a very beautiful way, and this amazes me every time when people talk about religion. Like everyone has same kind of body now. Of course, with gender it changes a bit, but
Yeah.
we all breathe in rhythm, same rhythm. It changes based on our thoughts, feelings, what we see, stuff like that. But we all have same energy, instincts. We all were born same. Then why this differentiation? That I always question this, and yeah, but you have had put it through very beautifully, and thank you for opening up so well and putting your thoughts out there. Now we are at the end of our podcast. Would you like to share something before I asked our last question?
We all believe that life is a certain way. But what we have to remember is that your life experiences and other people's opinion and all the things that are happening around you should never determine, should never fixate you on the fact that I should do this, I should follow this. The only person who can determine your life and what you learn from life and what you become is your own expectations of yourself and how you define yourself. Like when I was sick, I am still in the state I am. I still have the illnesses in my body. I mean, and they will remain with me because I can't do anything about it. But my illnesses do not define who I am. What people think about me, because I got ostracized after, even after my husband died, somebody asked me, why didn't you die instead? Yeah, I know. And I say it out loud because I got asked that. Why didn't you die instead? Because I was the one who had all the illnesses and he got suddenly sick and he just died. And like, imagine somebody asking, and I said, my response was, I don't know. Why don't you ask God? Because, and maybe He'll answer you, because I never thought to ask Him, and I have never spoken to them again. But the fact is that you do not let what other people think, and from the minute you begin to let everything else affect or determine or define who you are, then you lose who you are. And it's important to remember that you are unique. There is only one of you in this world at any time, and you are here, you are present. Look into yourself and see all the things that are good about you. Don't see your flaws, don't see your lack, because honestly, you do not really lack anything if you learn to look at it properly.
Wow. Like before we touch into the last question, it just came out of curiosity. Do you trust people now, or do you still hold back a little bit?
Actually, I trust people because I prefer to believe the best in people. And even if afterwards, like, I find out that they're not what I would remember is the good times we had together and the good feelings I had. And I'll put aside if there was a motive behind it or if anything, because I could only enjoy the moment. And why would I waste time thinking, okay, I had 2, 3 years with somebody and we had a good time together and we were good friends and stuff like that. And then you find out later on that maybe the person wasn't sincere or whatever, 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 or they spoke bad about you or whatever afterwards. But then I'll tell myself, I say, you know what? That doesn't matter because I enjoyed their company. We had laughs together. We did things together. Yeah, we argued sometimes and stuff like that, but we had fun together. And that was a good few years of my life. And okay, fine, they had a ulterior motive, or maybe they did something afterwards that I didn't like. But let me see the best in them because that was a good time. And I'm not going to taint the good time and the good memories we had with thinking, looking, oh, why didn't I see this before? I should have known the person was like that. What is the sense of doing that now when you had a good time? They just say, okay, I forgive you. I don't know why you do what you do, but that's life.
All right, thank you for sharing that. I have a last question for our listeners, and I'm sure that they will get a lot out of that question. So the question for you is, what are the three life lessons that everyone can take away today? Like you have shared a few things before in our second last question, which I asked, but I want to touch base of three, like the topmost lessons you have learned so far.
Okay. One lesson that everybody should learn is that you are more, never less. Right? And I will explain that in that when you were a child, you had to learn to crawl, to walk, to run. That's how it is in life. You started small and you grew. You start small in everything that you want to do and you grow every day with it. And it's only through struggle that you realize how deep you are and what you really are capable of. So you are more, never less. The second life lesson I have learned is that things happen in life over which because we have no control over life. I might be good now, but next 5 minutes, I could get sick. I could be walking on the street being very happy, and a car may lose control, or I can slip and fall. Be present in the moment that you are in now. Yes, you have dreams and things you want to do tomorrow in the future. You have a lot of desires and wishes. But at the same time, you can hold on to those. But also remember that the only time you are really alive is now. You are only present in this moment you are in now. So whilst you hope and you dream and you expect, find the joy in just being here, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. And the third life lesson is there is a higher being who is always with you and you can turn to and you can trust in him because he will never leave you. And that I do know because I tell everyone I live by the grace of God, no matter what name you call him by. I live by his grace and so do each one of us. Not just because I have something wrong with me or because I went through a lot, but we all live by his grace because he breathed the first breath in us. He is the one who opened doors and closes doors. And when you go to sleep at night. He's the one who watches over you because we are not sure what is going to happen if your gonna eyes are going to open again. And most of us, some of us may say, okay, no, well, we have a season in life, yes, but that season has already been determined by someone. So let's just put faith and have faith and trust and love as He loves us because we were created from love, of love, in love, and with love. Those are my lessons.
That's beautiful. There's so much to learn from your journey, and I am super grateful that you opened up for us, for our audience. So I'm truly, truly grateful for your time, for being you, and for sharing all the insights that you have shared today. For me, it was like a soft nudge that whatever I have learned or whatever I have been doing, just keep doing that. For someone, it might be something else. So, yeah, thank you so much, and truly grateful.
And thank you very much for having me.